Most people think intelligence is something you either have or you don't. A number, a grade, a score on a test someone designed years ago. But real psychology paints a quieter picture. Your mind is not revealed during the biggest moments of your life. It reveals itself in the small things you repeat when nobody is watching, in the way you react to discomfort, in the conversations you avoid, in the habits you defend, even when they are slowly hurting you. And this is the uncomfortable truth most people never realize. Your brain is always adapting to the life you repeatedly give it. Every day, your habits are either sharpening your mind or slowly teaching it to become weaker, more distracted, more emotionally reactive, and less capable of deep thought. Not all damage looks dramatic. Sometimes it looks like constantly needing noise in the background. Sometimes it looks like avoiding difficult conversations. Sometimes it looks like endlessly scrolling because silence feels heavier than distraction. And the dangerous part is that many of these behaviors feel normal now. Modern life rewards distraction. It rewards speed over depth, reaction over reflection, confidence over understanding. So people slowly lose the ability to think clearly without even noticing it. Psychologists often talk about neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reshape itself through repetition, which means the way you live today becomes the architecture of your mind tomorrow. And once you understand that, certain behaviors begin to look very different. Because some habits do not just make life harder, they quietly disconnect you from your own potential. One of the first signs appears in people who can never sit alone with themselves. The moment silence arrives, they panic internally. They reach for their phone, turn on a video, message someone, open another app, play music they are not even listening to. Not because they enjoy it, but because silence forces them to meet their own thoughts. Research has found that many people experience genuine discomfort when left alone with nothing but their mind for even a short period of time. And at first, that may not sound serious. But think about what it means. If your mind constantly needs escape, what exactly is it trying to avoid? Intelligent reflection requires stillness, not constant stimulation. Some of the clearest breakthroughs people experience happen during quiet walks, long showers, late nights alone, or moments where the world finally becomes silent enough for deeper thoughts to surface. But many people never stay in silence long enough to hear themselves think. And over time, their inner world becomes shallow because they never explore it. This is why some people feel emotionally lost despite always being entertained. They consume constantly, yet understand themselves very little. And what makes this even more dangerous is that distraction feels productive now. Scrolling feels like resting. Noise feels comforting. Busyness feels meaningful. But deep inside, the mind becomes fragmented, attention weakens, patience disappears, thoughts become shorter, reflection becomes exhausting, which explains why so many people today struggle to focus on anything that requires emotional depth. And there's another behavior closely connected to this. Many people have stopped being curious. Not visibly, not dramatically. They still talk, still socialize, still share opinions. But psychologically, something important has faded. Their conversations never move beyond surfaces. Weather, celebrities, drama, trends, other people's mistakes. Hours pass, yet nothing meaningful is actually explored. Psychologists sometimes describe this as a low desire for cognitive engagement, a tendency to avoid mentally demanding thought, because real curiosity requires vulnerability. You must admit you don't fully understand something. You must stay open long enough to learn. You must tolerate uncertainty instead of rushing toward simple conclusions. And many people unconsciously resist that discomfort. So they stay inside shallow conversations because depth requires effort. But you can often tell how someone thinks by what they consistently talk about. People with emotionally intelligent minds are usually fascinated by patterns, human behavior, meaning, growth, contradictions, ideas. Not because they want to sound smart, but because their mind naturally searches beneath the surface. Meanwhile, others spend years repeating the same conversations while wondering why life feels mentally empty. And this becomes even more visible in the way people react to being wrong. Some people would rather protect their ego than protect the truth. The moment they are challenged, they become defensive, not curious, not reflective, defensive. Because for them, being wrong feels like humiliation instead of growth. Psychologists have long observed something fascinating about confidence. The people who understand the least are often the most certain, while people with deeper understanding tend to speak with more nuance, caution, and humility. Because real intelligence eventually teaches you how much you still do not know. But insecure minds often compensate with certainty. They interrupt constantly, speak over others, pretend expertise, refuse correction, and if you listen carefully, their confidence often hides fragile thinking underneath. This is why wisdom rarely sounds loud. People who truly think deeply usually ask more questions than they answer. They pause, reflect, consider context, because they understand reality is complicated. And maybe one of the clearest signs of emotional maturity is the ability to say, "I might be wrong." That sentence alone requires more intelligence than most people realize. Because growth only begins when defensiveness ends. And this connects to another silent habit that slowly weakens the mind: the addiction to instant relief. Modern life has made discomfort feel unacceptable. The second boredom appears, people escape it. The second sadness appears, people numb it. The second effort becomes difficult, people quit. Everything is designed to give immediate stimulation now. Fast videos, fast food, fast entertainment, fast validation. And slowly the brain becomes conditioned to expect reward without patience. Research on delayed gratification has repeatedly shown that the ability to tolerate temporary discomfort is deeply connected to long-term success, emotional regulation, and decision-making. But most people train themselves in the opposite direction every day. They teach the brain, if something feels hard, avoid it. And eventually, even small challenges begin to feel overwhelming. Reading becomes difficult. Thinking deeply becomes tiring. Long conversations become exhausting. Real goals become intimidating. Because the brain adapts to what it repeatedly practices, and this is important to understand. A distracted mind is not always a naturally weak mind. Often, it is simply an untrained one. A mind that has spent years consuming stimulation instead of building endurance. Which is why some people cannot stay focused long enough to change their lives, even when they desperately want to. Their brain has been conditioned for escape, not discipline. And strangely, many people confuse this with personality. They say things like, "That's just how I am." But psychology suggests many behaviors are not fixed identities. They are repeated conditioning, which means they can also be changed. And perhaps nowhere is mental conditioning more obvious than in sleep deprivation. There is something deeply strange about modern culture glorifying exhaustion. People brag about sleeping 4 hours, working nonstop, being constantly available, as if burnout is proof of ambition. But neuroscientists consistently warn about the cognitive damage caused by chronic sleep neglect. Memory declines, focus weakens, emotional regulation collapses, decision-making becomes impulsive. Studies have even compared severe sleep deprivation to cognitive impairment similar to intoxication. Yet millions of people normalize it. And emotionally, the damage runs even deeper. A tired mind becomes more reactive, more negative, more anxious, more emotionally fragile. Things that normally feel manageable suddenly feel unbearable. Conversations become sharper. Patience disappears. Overthinking increases. which means many people are not actually experiencing reality clearly. They are experiencing reality through an exhausted nervous system, and that changes everything. Sometimes the problem is not your entire life. Sometimes the problem is that your brain has not truly rested in months. Intelligent living is not about constantly pushing harder. It is also about knowing when restoration is necessary. Because a burned-out mind cannot think clearly about the future. And while many people damage their mind through exhaustion, others weaken it through rigid thinking. They stop adapting. And psychologically, this is incredibly dangerous. Some people become emotionally attached to familiarity, even when it no longer serves them. New ideas threaten them. Different perspectives irritate them. Change feels personal. So instead of exploring, they reject. Not because the new idea is wrong, but because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. Psychologists often describe cognitive flexibility as one of the most important traits linked to adaptive intelligence. The ability to update beliefs, adjust perspectives, learn from new evidence. But rigid minds resist this process. They want certainty more than truth, which is why some people stay stuck for years, repeating the same mistakes while insisting nothing needs to change. And if you pay attention, rigid thinking often hides fear underneath. Because changing your perspective sometimes requires admitting your old perspective was incomplete. That can hurt the ego. But emotionally intelligent people understand something important. Changing your mind is not weakness. It is evidence that learning occurred. And the people who evolve most in life are usually the people least afraid of being transformed by new understanding. Then there are people who slowly lose their ability to think independently altogether, not because they lack intelligence, but because they outsource all thinking to the crowd. They follow every trend, repeat every opinion, absorb every viral belief without questioning it. Psychologists have studied conformity for decades, and the results are unsettling. Human beings naturally feel pressure to agree with groups, even when the group is clearly wrong. Because belonging feels emotionally safer than independent thought. And social media amplifies this instinct constantly. People copy identities now, copy personalities, copy outrage, copy lifestyles. Not always consciously, but slowly, they lose contact with what they genuinely think or feel, which creates a strange emptiness inside many people. Because living entirely through imitation disconnects you from authenticity. Real intelligence asks uncomfortable questions like, do I actually believe this? Do I truly want this life? Or am I copying what keeps me socially accepted? And those questions require courage. Because independent thinking often feels lonely at first. But without it, people become psychologically programmable. And one of the clearest consequences of this appears in the way people consume information. Some people no longer evaluate truth carefully. They evaluate emotion. If something sounds dramatic, they believe it. If it confirms their fears, they spread it. If it makes them feel important, they defend it. Psychologists call this confirmation bias, the tendency to seek information that supports existing beliefs while ignoring contradictory evidence. And emotionally, this bias is incredibly seductive. Because certainty feels comforting, complexity feels exhausting. So the brain chooses simple explanations for difficult realities, conspiracies, extreme assumptions, oversimplified narratives. Not always because people are unintelligent, but because uncertainty creates anxiety. And emotionally reactive minds often prioritize emotional relief over intellectual honesty. But mature thinking requires tolerating ambiguity. Sometimes the truthful answer is, I don't fully know yet, and that patience protects the mind from manipulation. Because not every emotionally satisfying explanation is true. Then there is another quiet habit that slowly weakens emotional intelligence. Poor listening. Most people think listening is passive. But genuine listening is mentally demanding. You must temporarily leave your own perspective, absorb unfamiliar information, notice emotional nuance, resist the urge to interrupt. And many people struggle with this more than they realize. They wait for their turn to speak instead of truly hearing. Or they mentally prepare responses while the other person is still talking, which means conversations become performances instead of connection. Research consistently shows that strong listening skills are deeply tied to emotional intelligence, empathy, and relationship quality. Because people who truly listen learn constantly, not just facts, human nature itself. And maybe that is why emotionally wise people often seem calm. They spend less energy proving themselves and more energy understanding others. Meanwhile, insecure minds rush to dominate conversations because silence feels threatening to them. But ironically, people who constantly need to appear intelligent often stop learning entirely. Because learning requires listening, and listening requires humility. There is also a form of self-destruction that modern culture rarely discusses honestly. The slow decay caused by endless passive consumption. Hours disappear into scrolling. Videos autoplay endlessly. Entertainment fills every empty space. And eventually, people stop creating, reflecting, or engaging deeply with life. They only consume it. Research suggests constant overstimulation reduces attention span and increases compulsive behavior patterns. But emotionally, something even sadder happens. People begin experiencing life less directly. They watch others live instead of living themselves. They compare instead of creating, react instead of reflecting, escape instead of participating. And over time, the mind becomes dependent on stimulation just to feel normal, which explains why stillness now feels unbearable for so many people. Because the nervous system has forgotten how to exist without constant dopamine. And this creates a painful contradiction. People feel mentally exhausted while simultaneously feeling emotionally unstimulated. Too much noise, too little meaning. And perhaps the deepest tragedy is that many people sense this internally but feel powerless to stop. Because habits repeated long enough begin to feel like identity. But they are not identity, they are conditioning. And conditioning can change. Slowly, painfully sometimes, but absolutely. Because the brain never stops adapting. Which means every small decision matters more than people think. Every time you choose reflection over distraction, your mind changes. Every time you tolerate discomfort instead of escaping it, your mind changes. Every time you stay curious instead of defensive, your mind changes. Growth is rarely dramatic in the beginning. It often looks invisible. A longer attention span, a calmer reaction, a deeper conversation, a quieter mind, a stronger ability to sit alone without needing escape. Small things, but small things repeated consistently become personality. And eventually, destiny. The truth is, intelligence is not just about information. Some of the most informed people are emotionally lost. Some of the smartest-looking people are deeply disconnected from themselves. Real intelligence is reflected in awareness. The awareness to notice your patterns, question your impulses, adapt when necessary, remain curious, stay emotionally honest. And maybe the most intelligent thing a person can do is refuse to live unconsciously. Because unconscious habits shape unconscious lives. Most people will continue repeating the same patterns tomorrow, the same distractions, the same emotional escapes, the same mental shortcuts. Not because change is impossible, but because awareness requires effort. And many people would rather stay familiar than become free. But if even part of this felt uncomfortably personal to you, that may actually be a good sign. Awareness is where transformation begins. The moment you can honestly observe your own patterns without running from them, your mind already starts changing. Not instantly, not perfectly, but genuinely. And maybe that is the message people need most right now. You are not trapped by the person you have been training yourself to become. The brain learns, but it can also relearn, which means your future mind is still being shaped by the choices you make today, the conversations you entertain, the habits you repeat, the silence you avoid, the truths you resist, the discomfort you escape, the thoughts you feed every single day. All of it matters, more than most people realize. So protect your attention, protect your curiosity, protect your ability to think deeply in a world constantly trying to keep you distracted. Because once a person loses the ability to reflect, question, and truly understand themselves, they slowly lose the ability to understand life itself. And if you want more videos that explore the hidden psychology behind human behavior, emotional intelligence, habits, and the deeper patterns shaping your mind, subscribe to the channel. Because the people who change their lives are usually not the loudest people in the room. They are the people willing to quietly examine themselves honestly and evolve